Hello, everyone. This is Brandon. How are you doing? It's good to see you again. Uh, Actually, right now I'm in a very different place than I was the last time I did a video about an animated film, and it was a completely different animated film. I was in Nagoya and I watched the Dragon Ball movie, and got a couple of comments since then. I appreciate you guys giving me some suggestions. I haven't been able to actually check out any of those except I did go back and watch a few Dragon Ball clips. The reason I say clips is because right now I'm in China. I've been living in China mostly over the past 5 years or so. I've been back and forth between China and Japan, but I spent most of my time in China. And of course, for those of you who are at least a little bit familiar with China, I have to use a VPN to watch anything on YouTube or I don't have Netflix, but I don't spend a lot of time watching stuff anyway, so it doesn't really matter to me. I usually watch informational videos or learn how to do something. But recently, I've been trying to pick up a few little things here and there that I feel like I should watch, like some classic films or highly rated films, or some anime, for example, that's very, very popular stuff that I've either just not gotten to or just been too busy to get to, or in the past didn't care for. But I'm going back and looking at those things now, kind of like what I said with the Dragon Ball stuff. But I did watch a couple of episodes and some clips of Dragon Ball, and I have to say a couple of things before I get into talking about this movie called White Snake, which I just saw yesterday in the theater. Before I get that, I do want to say, for those of you who watch my Dragon Ball Broly film review, the little bit of Dragon Ball episodes that I watched, the early episodes, it was hard to kind of keep them in order because there's so much available on YouTube, and of course, there's one channel that's not connected to another channel, different users' channels. Some people have like a whole episode, and some people have a clip of an episode, and so it gets hard for me to try to figure out, number one, number two, number three, number four. It seems like some people post something that says it's number one's the first one, and another person posts something that says it's the first one, and when I watch them both, I see something a little different, like the same type of story being told from two different angles. So it's a little confusing. So what I've decided to do is try to pay for and download like the first full season, and then watch those and see how it goes. But I will say my first impression is that it's very cutting edge humor, and it actually pushes the envelope a little bit because I saw a couple of clips that weren't necessarily in order that were pretty amazing. One of those clips is where he's with a girl, and I don't even know her name yet. I know she's one of the important characters, but she's obviously one of the important characters, but she's asleep, and he's trying to figure out where her balls are. That's pretty funny. If you're a fan, I'm sure you know that scene, but I was actually kind of shocked to see that, especially in a something that's not new, something that's been out for a while. It came out a while ago. That's very cutting edge. But speaking of that, it reminds me also of some stuff I saw in this film White Snake, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But I do want to tell you last thing about Dragon Ball. It looks very interesting. What I saw was very funny. I think the main character's voice, Goku, is a little strange. And I am trying to watch the Japanese version. I've always just preferred to watch these in Japanese, but I did watch a couple of clips in English, and they weren't bad. But I still do prefer the Japanese version. So I will get those and then watch them, and I will let you know how it goes. But anyway, back to the main point, which is why some of you are probably here, if not all of you. And that is, there's a new Chinese animated film that just came out a few days ago, and it's called White Snake. That's not the band White Snake. That's the animated film. If you look it up online, it's actually a little hard to get the results. You have to type it in. If you want to look for it on Google and get some information, you need to type in like White Snake, 2 words, Chinese animated film, or maybe Chinese American animated film. The reason I say Chinese American is because this animation film, or animated film rather, is a collaboration between producers in China and America. And it's not surprising to see that, just because so many Chinese movie studios are pumping money and investment into American films. But to see that some of that money is being put into Chinese films and raising the quality and that sort of thing is very interesting. But this film, it definitely has some American feel to it. I don't want to say Hollywood feel, because even though it that's basically what it means, I just don't like referring to everything as Hollywood, because first of all, not every film is made in Hollywood, and definitely not every great film comes from Hollywood. There are a lot of studios and places putting out some quality films in many different places, and it doesn't all go through Hollywood. But for the sake of argument, let's just say it has the Hollywood feel, because it's more smoother than normal. After seeing the Monkey King 3D a few years ago and being totally blown away by the bad CG, I'm never impressed. I wasn't even impressed with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I'm sorry, I just don't like that film. I like the actors that are in it, and it looks beautiful. But for somebody like me who's watched a lot of old kung fu movies, especially the old Jet Li films, I'm sorry, the movies like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon just don't do it for me. So anyway, especially when they're movies like Fearless, Jet Li's Fearless, that's a freaking awesome movie. That movie should have won awards compared to Crouching Tiger. Crouching Tiger can't hold a candle compared to Fearless. But this film, I will say that White Snake, just based on my a small little bit of reading about the history of it, because you could say that in a nutshell, it's a story about a girl who becomes a human. She's a snake, but becomes a human, but she's not like a regular snake. But I kind of thought that maybe she was supposed to be like a regular snake, according to the Chinese legend or something, but maybe I'm wrong. It could be that this movie just confused me, because there's so many things going on in the film, because you find out she's a snake, but she's like a snake person. But she's sometimes human, sometimes snake, sometimes half, a little bit of both, sometimes just a little snake, mostly human. And then they refer to them as demons, and they talk about monsters. And so this world that they create is very interesting, because in being from the U.S. like I am, I guess you could say the Western view of demons is more biblical. Mostly, from my perspective, it's just more kind of the biblical demons of fallen angels and that sort of thing. And so it's very different. If you know anime and not just the Japanese culture, but of course the Chinese culture and a lot of these areas here in Asia, their ideas of demons can be quite different. And in this film, that's on full display. And so if you're a little familiar with the Chinese concept of demons, then you'll be comfortable getting your mind around this film. But I felt like they went a little overboard in talking about how chaotic everything was, and what the emperor was trying to do to get everything under control. So it was kind of crazy, because the things that the emperor was trying to do to get everything under control, that was kind of crazy, because everything that's happening is crazy. It seemed like life's crazy for everybody, and people are having to do crazy things in order to just get by or be alive. And so the emperor does crazy things to try to fix it, but they also are all corrupt. So it's a very interesting film. But anyway, what I wanted to say was the movie does look beautiful. It's not flawless, and it's not, even when I look at it, I examine like the smoothness of the animation. And it just seems like with a lot of Chinese animation, when they put it up on the big screen, it gets a little pixelated. Now, I wouldn't say that this film is like pixelated in a way that was as bad as the Monkey King, because there were some explosions and fire and did some effects in Monkey King that were just absolutely terrible. Just made me cringe. It made me want to maybe want to just put my head down, or do the Picard head slap or something. But anyway, in this film, I did notice that some of the edging of some of the characters and stuff, especially when they showed them up close, it seemed like it just wasn't as smooth as it should be. So I'm not quite sure why that is. Maybe they just didn't make it when they rendered it or whatever, or they created it. They just didn't make it. I guess the if you know scaling objects, if you work in graphics or Photoshop or anything like that. Now, if you're creating all your objects in the computer, then it's no problem. You can just create it to be a large file size, right? So for any of you who do video editing or that sort of thing, if you shoot 4K video and you want to edit all that on your computer, that's very intensive stuff. And so to make an animated film that's 3D, generated computer animation 100%, and you want to scale it up and put it on a big screen and have it look really nice and smooth, that takes a lot of computing power. And I'd go so far as to say that it also takes a lot of experience. And that's something that they're still really working on in China. And obviously in this movie, when I saw it, I can tell that they've gotten a lot of help, professional help, and they've improved a lot. And so I didn't have a problem with it. And there are actually some parts of the film that were really, really beautiful. And I really liked that. But there were some other parts that I felt like it was a little lazy maybe, or just they went over it a little too fast, and it wasn't quite as good as it could have been. But I will say that this movie is a must-see if you're a fantasy lover, if you're an animation lover. It meets both requirements. It's a very interesting story. I feel like it gets a little convoluted because I just feel like they could have simplified it a little bit. However, it still doesn't get too bad. I mean, it's easy to understand everything that's going on, but they don't go quite fully into some things I wish they would, and they stay a little vague on a couple of things. But anyway, it looks like they set it up for a second one. If there is, I'm not surprised, because there's a little treat later that seems to suggest there will be another one. So there you go. Anyway. So there's nothing earth-shattering at the end of the film or whatever. If you're going to watch it in the theater, if you get the chance to watch it in the theater, there is a little something during the credits, but at the very end of the credits, I don't think there's anything at all. All I read online was that there was something during the credits, and I stayed to watch that. So about halfway through the credits, they showed another scene, and then after that, more credits, and then nothing. The U.S. release, I don't know, may be different, but there you go. I will say this: if you have little kids and you want to take them to see this film, maybe you should think twice. And there are a couple of reasons why. One is, there's some violence in the film that I think is inappropriate for little kids. The second thing is, and this is the part I was talking about earlier about the Dragon Ball thing being a little racy, with some of the jokes and some of the things he was saying. But there's a scene in this film. I'm not going to go into the detail because I don't want to spoil it for you. But it didn't get too graphic, but it got a little intimate, and I was a little surprised at that, because the way the rating system works here in China is like this: either it's allowed in the theater, or it's not. That's it. That's the rating system in China. So basically. Anybody can go see this film at any age. So you can bring your baby in to see this film. You can bring a 2-year-old in to see this film. It doesn't really matter. So I was shocked to see something like that in the cinema. Sometimes China does that. I'm a little surprised. But there's another character in the film, a supporting character who's an important character, but she's a very seductive character. The way they designed her and present her, the way she moves, the way she talks, everything she does is very sexy and seductive, and that's also a little pushing the envelope. But not only that, if you notice the way her costume moves around and looks on her chest and on her legs and stuff, they're obviously trying to make you look, and they're It's just, to me, definitely for a kid's movie, it's too much. But obviously, there's some animated films that have a lot worse stuff than that. But this film kind of comes out as being like a family-friendly film. And they even talk about how when they made the film, they wanted to be able to show it to the younger generations, retell this story of this snake who wanted to be human and fall in love with this guy or whatever. They wanted to retell this story for younger generations. Well, this is not really a film that younger generations should watch unless they're at least, I would say in their teens. I mean, even 13-year-old, I think it just, some scenes just kind of send the wrong message, but maybe that's just me. But anyway, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. If you get the chance to see this film, I do recommend it. I highly recommend it. It's named White Snake. And if you did see it already, let me know what you think. I have no idea what the release date is in the US or even if it's going to show. I would imagine it's going to, since it was co-produced. And it's doing really well in China. It has a rating of over 9 out of 10. And that's really important in China. They care a lot about the ratings. Some of my friends, if they see a movie that's rated like 7.3, they don't want to go see it. So they care a lot about that, But anyway, I've seen some films here that were rated like 6, and that's because either the style of film I wanted to see, or it was like the only foreign film that I could see that had English. Because I do like to watch some Chinese movies, but I don't watch everything in English. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't watch everything in Chinese. I watch some in English, but during holidays there are no foreign films because the market is strictly to support China. But anyway, whenever I can, I see as many as possible. And I did see 3 yesterday. I know it sounds crazy, but I saw 3 movies yesterday. A Japanese movie, an American movie, and this Chinese-American movie. But maybe tomorrow, if I have time, I'll make a video on a couple of other movies I saw. I did see Bumblebee. It was cool to see Soundwave in that film. And I've got my Soundwave up there. You can't see him, but maybe I'll show him to you tomorrow. Anyway, that's all for now. See you next time. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right. Bye-bye.